Hello everyone and welcome to the Navin Times Talk from the Heart. Just as children grow physically, mentally, emotionally, they also grow sexually. This aspect, however, is not very easy for parents to deal with. In our studio, our guest today is Dr. Nandita D'Souza. She is a behavioral and developmental pediatrician and the director of Setu. She is going to talk to us and explain to us all about sexuality in children. Hello, doctor, and thank you for coming on our show. It's such a pleasure to have you again. This is the second time that we are having doctor on our show, and it's always a pleasure to speak with her. Yes, doctor.
Thanks, Maria. It's, as you said, a pleasure to speak to you, and a big thank you to all the viewers who are joining us today. So I'm very excited. This is my favorite topic actually. So I'm so happy to have this opportunity to have a conversation with you around childhood sexuality.
You said this is a favorite topic of yours. Why is it a favorite topic? I mean, you deal with children the whole day through, nearly 365 days in a year. So
Yes.
what is it that makes it so dear to you?
Yes, that's a great question. The reason is that childhood sexuality is such an important part of child development, but very often it is ignored, mainly because I think there's a lot of fear and a lot of myths around it, and parents really don't know what to do. So I feel it is my duty as a professional working in this area, as well as a parent, to tell people that it's important to talk about childhood sexuality, as well as it's not difficult to do, which is why I talk about it a lot. And it, as I said, it is necessary. And when people, hear about how one can do it, why one should do it, as well as learn, simple techniques that they can use with their own children, it breaks that silence and it breaks that fear around this area of child development.
You just said break the silence, which I think, and I'm sure our viewers agree as well, that there is a lot of taboo as far as this is concerned, because sexuality is a topic that we normally connect with and relate to adults. So when we speak about sexuality in children, it's something that's a big no. Am I right, doctor?
Very true. Fortunately, the world is changing, and parents as well as other carers of children and teachers and so on are realizing that it's important to consider this aspect of child development, which is as important as their nutrition or their growth or their sleep, because it has a lot to do with how children get socialized, how they mix with others, with their safety,
That's key, isn't
yes,
it?
as well as with their self-help skills. So that's the importance. We don't look at childhood sexuality on its own. We look at its very close interconnection with their social development, their emotional development, their self-help skills, as well as safety. And I think it's a safety issue which has driven parents now to learn more about it and want to know how to teach their children to keep themselves safe.
You just said that, it's really important that we speak about it, which I agree, and that is why we have these conversations, which are really talk from the heart. We do not hold any punches back. We say what we have to, and we express our views, not just me, but even our speakers. Now, what I would like to ask you is, does the sexual behavior that happens in children, is it normal or is it only restricted to a certain group of children?
Well, childhood sexuality, as I said, is part of child development. And just like in all the other areas of development, for example, the development of the thinking or the development of their muscles and the motor skills, there are certain behaviors that children show that help us to know, okay, they're at this stage of development, right? Because when children start sitting up or walking or running, we know that their motor development is progressing normally. The same way with sexuality development. There are certain normal sexual behaviors okay, which may be worrying to parents because they're to do with self-exploration and touching their own body parts and asking questions and so on. However, they're part of normal development, and therefore parents should not get alarmed or think there's something wrong with their child. In fact, their child is developing on the right trajectory when they start showing curiosity about their own bodies and wanting to learn more about their own bodies. So yes, these behaviors are very, very natural, and it's important for parents to know where there are certain red flags, okay, which usually come because either the child has been exposed to a level of sexual information that is not appropriate for their age, or they have been actually, sexually harmed in some way. So it's important to know the difference between what's usual, natural, and what is out of the ordinary for that particular age group.
You said that it is a very natural progression that children display some sort of sexual behavior, but we don't see it very commonly, do we? Or unless children do it on their own when they are behind closed doors.
Right.
Is that what you think happens normally?
I think, self-exploration is something that's very, very normal. So children touch various parts of the body, including their private parts. And this, it's unlikely that parents will speak about it in public, but they certainly notice, and very often because they don't know how to handle it, it's handled in the wrong way, which leads to further kind of anxiety or fear in the child. So, this is one common behavior which we see that, as I said, is part of the natural curiosity about their own bodies. Or children may see something on the news, or they may read something in the newspaper, maybe about a rape or about a gay pride, and then they will ask their parents what it means. Now again, this is normal and natural and very healthy, but if parents are not prepared and they don't know what to say, they will try to silence it and unnecessarily suppress something which should be discussed and which is a kind of a opportunity to educate your child.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, does this behavior occur more in males, boys, or is it prominent in girls, or there is no distinction? How does it work?
So I'm not sure which behavior you're referring to.
Their sexual, they're getting aware, they're becoming sexually aware. So this touching themselves or touching somebody else, is that more with boys or with girls?
Okay, so I'm going to use the scientific term for it, which is masturbation.
Okay.
Okay, and masturbation, or what we call private touching, or touching oneself, one's private parts. As I said, this is something which is normal and natural. It is part of, it's seen very early. In fact, ultrasound pictures have shown that even fetuses masturbate. Okay, so
is that true?
Yes. So it's completely normal part, just like children may scratch their earlobe and they get a certain sensation. They also realize that touching their private parts gives them a pleasurable sensation. Okay, now there's nothing bad with that. However, it has to be socialized. That means the child needs to know that it's a personal, private behavior. So, how masturbation is handled is has to be together with this teaching of this private and public concept. So, what is private? That's something that you do when you're on your own, or it's parts of the body that are always covered by your by the underwear, or it is a place like the bedroom or the bathroom with the door closed. So this concept of private is something which we have to teach children early. The same way when they, sometimes show curiosity and want to touch other people's body parts, that time also we need to tell them about their boundaries and what are the limits. But I think this behavior is, exploratory, and it is seen both in boys and in girls. There's no difference between the two. It just depends how it is handled by the parents or the teachers, and as I said, as used as an opportunity to teach the child about what is appropriate behavior, and about their own bodies. Yeah.
So when children behave like you said, they touch themselves, or they touch another child or another parent. You have, I'm sure we have also seen maybe even our own children touching their mother's breasts,
Yes.
which is, I think, very common. So besides them touching themselves or touching somebody else or their mother, you know, mostly it is the mother, they like to touch their mother's breast, but is there any other behavior that you can, you know, tell our parents, because let them feel that, oh, this is okay and it's natural? Is there anything else
Yeah.
that they do?
So, in a sense, there's so many things that children do. It's not possible to go through everything
A few.
that's normal or,
Okay.
or natural. But certainly, you know, first of all, as I said, teaching children about the boundaries is very important. Okay, and the first thing that, you know, parents need to do is teach children about their body parts and the correct names for the body parts. So very often parents will teach children even less than a year that, you know, this is their ear, their eyes, their mouth. But when they come to the private parts, they're given some silly names or, you know, some kind of cute names. Okay, so, you know, but actually that's not correct, because the children don't know the correct scientific names for their body parts. And that can create a lot of confusion, because what is Nunu in one house will be Nini in another house and a Pipi in the third house, right? So, you know, it's important that parents tell children about their private parts and use these terms in a very natural way during the daily activity, especially of bathing or even a baby changing the nappy. So, you know, girls have vulvas and boys have penises. Okay, so these are words that parents should be using comfortably. And suppose the parent is worried that, you know, will my child go and say this word penis or vulva in public?
Which
Well,
children tend to do. I mean,
right, but then that's science. I mean, they're explaining, you know, a scientific term. So is it kind of better if they say poo poo? I mean, you know, it's I think if they say vulva, and you know, it's as I would say kind of more right or correct than using slang. And also, when they learn about the names of the body parts, the next thing that they have to learn is about this private and public concept. Okay, so certain parts of the body are private. What does that mean? That means you don't show it to everybody, and if at all you show the private parts, it has to be, or you touch your private parts, it has to be in a private.
so doctor has just spoken about the importance of using the right and the scientific term for private parts to our children when we are bathing them, or, you know, changing their siblings. I think that
Yes,
would be
yes.
the best time. But like you rightly said, parents normally have this apprehension. I have taught my son that that is his penis. What if he goes and says this in public at a party or to his grandparents, and that's, according to parents, is taboo. Also, it is like, I'm just giving you a scenario. I have taught my son that this is your penis and you should not let anyone touch it. And tomorrow maybe he's speaking to his grandfather. Now this is just a scenario that I'm just thinking about. And he's speaking to his grandfather, and by mistake his grandfather touches him and he says, "Don't touch my penis." First and foremost, I'm sure the older generation will not be that open to the idea of using these scientific terms. And as my father-in-law, he could say to me, "What are you teaching your child?" I mean, in-laws can be, you know, a little demanding that way.
Right.
So,
So the situation you have described, I think, has to be handled in different ways. Okay, so one is, I would congratulate that child for remembering the scientific term and using it in the correct situation. I would also congratulate the child for being aware that he has to keep himself safe. Right now, let's presume that the grandfather, you know, was kind of helping the child in the toilet and, you know,
Yes.
kind of touched the
Right,
boy's penis.
right.
Okay, so there was no abuse. In that situation, I think that, you know, any grandparent who's kind of not in that situation where they're abusing the child, there's nothing to hide, right? So, you know, if the grandparent knows that yes, this child has been taught about keeping themselves safe, they should be happy that the child is able to use that information and say, oh, I'm so sorry, it was an accident, right? So that is one thing. Now, I would say if it's a family where, you know, it's the first time this is being done and parents are talking to their kids, maybe it's also helpful to talk to the other people in the family and let them know. Because, you know, there is a lot of information about childhood sexuality. There are, you know, little handouts or videos, which I think can be shared with other family members so they too are educated. I think even grandparents can make great educators, even though, you know, their age is kind of advanced, yet most people would know that it's important to teach a child how to keep themselves safe. And that is where our thrust should be. That it actually helps your child to know what is safe touch and what is unsafe touch. And, you know, if there's any kind of touch, they are not sure whether it's safe or unsafe, it's any touch on the private parts, it's better to talk about it. Even if it was, you know, as I said, during the course of a daily routine and was totally like not intended to be like a molestation or anything like that. So yeah, it's an opportunity, I think, to, you know, address and educate different generations. And I know, for example, you know, families have told me, you know, how when we were like in the earlier days, sometimes you just kind of whack the child on the buttock as the child, you know, in teasing. Children have turned around, young children say, don't touch me on the buttock, if you do, I'll report you. You know, so
Yes.
which is okay, I think, because they're expressing they don't want to be touched, then that's fine, we should respect them. So to take the example of kissing, you know, many children don't like to be kissed. And you'll see when they're kissed, they will like do that
Oh,
and
yes.
wipe their cheeks off. And I think, you know, we should respect that. Because if a child doesn't like to be squeezed hard or, you know, doesn't want to be like cuddled by someone who's not their immediate family member, I think they have a right to set that limit. We should not think just because it's a child, we can do whatever we would like with that child. You know, even if we enjoy cuddling the child and the child doesn't want it, we should respect that. So, you know, that is part of that limit setting, which I think it's very important for children to get a kind of awareness of their own limits and what they like and they do not like, and to be able to express it. And as adults, we should be, you know, open-minded enough to think that, yes, the child also has rights, like we have rights. So not to kind of dominate the child with what we want.
We want.
So that is, I think, a healthy relationship.
And I think most of us as parents and, you know, adults do that with our children. We say, go and kiss uncle, or go give auntie a hug. And I think we need to stop doing that. And we also have to check if our children are comfortable with it or not. Another important question that, you know, I'm just thinking about is, don't you think it's better for my child to come and ask me about sexuality or his or her body parts rather than tell them first? Don't you think it's better for me to wait for them?
Well, that's a great question. So what you're saying is, why should we talk to our children? You know, why can't we just wait for their questions, right? Because we don't want to be putting ideas in their heads. Many parents fear this. The thing is, though logically it makes sense, actually many children don't ask because somehow they have sussed out that this is not a topic we talk about, so they may not ask questions. So therefore, if we just wait for the child to ask questions, we may miss the opportunity to teach them. So I tell parents that start talking early, also because it's not easy to talk about sexuality, and most parents are uncomfortable. No one spoke to them when they were growing up, so they have no model to base their teaching on.
True.
And even the words, as I said, for body parts and so on are difficult. They don't come off the tongue easily.
Very true.
So I tell parents, especially the body parts, start talking using words like vulva, penis very early when your baby's born, and when you're changing the diaper, for example, say, okay, now you may have passed urine, now let me clean it up. Okay, now here your vulva is nice and clean, or your penis is nice and clean. So when you say these words, they lose that kind of scary tone to them, and then it's much easier to say them. Now, putting ideas into children's heads, again, a child, if they're curious, they will take in the information. But if they're not really interested, it will just, like, they won't really grasp it, and they can't make it into something else. So parents really should not worry too much. Having said that, there are certain things or topics we talk about at certain ages. So, for example, what will you do with the preschooler versus, say, an adolescent? The topics are definitely different. Yeah. So it's not like giving the whole, 101 on childhood sexuality in one shot to a very young child, but telling children different aspects of it at different ages. But certainly body parts and the private-public concept and safety must come in the preschool years. Yeah, before, especially before they start preschool, they should know about safe and unsafe touch.
So would this be around age 2 or 3?
Yes. So, we use what are called teachable moments. So it could be, for example, a child has kind of, as I said, during the bathing time, or during maybe a friend has come over. Very often little kids, they will look at each other and compare. I'll show you mine, you show me yours. Okay, so that is just curiosity. They're comparing body parts, and especially if they're different, say a boy and a girl, they're curious, like, what do you have there that's different from mine, right? So parents can use that as a way of explaining the different body parts also.
Okay, may I interrupt? Suppose, I'm sure even our viewers must be thinking this question. I walk into the room, my 5-year-old is in the room with his friend, and they are both taken off their pants and they're showing each other their private part. How do I handle this as a mother? Right. What should I do?
Great situation. As I said, part of body exploration. So the first thing is to take a deep breath. Okay, and you have to kind of recognize what's happening there. So, oh, I can see both of you all are with your pants down and looking at each other. Okay, you're looking at your private parts. Boys have penises. This is a private activity. Okay, so you have to put your pants back on. Okay, because it is private, right? So that's it. And it's normal to be curious about the human body. So you treat it in a very matter-of-fact way, but you don't say, go ahead and, kind of stay naked. Or you have to also draw a line, but in a very non-threatening and a scary way, where the children are like, okay, this is something.
What have I done?
What have I done? Is it a big sin, or have I done something really wrong? You have to lay down the limit. At the same time, you give the information and, say, yeah, that's your private part. It's called a penis, and boys have penises.
Now I'm playing the devil's advocate because she's the expert, and I'm sure she's going to give me a lot of tips. Doctor, let's take the scenario with my 5-year-old. I have corrected him and I've said, that's your private part, that's your penis, and now put your clothes back on. 2 days later, he's doing the same thing, and this time with the girl. Now, not only am I breathing heavily, right. I'm getting palpitations. What am I supposed to do?
So, girls and boys are different, right? So, he's still in the body
discovery discovery mode. Yes,
you have a real scientist for a child, right? So, you do the same thing, right? The same way, because it's a different situation. Or even if it was again the same child as previously, the friend was also a boy. I think it's important to talk to children. Say, you seem to be really curious. What's going on in your mind? But it has to be done in an extremely non-threatening way, which may be tough because
very
parents
tough.
Worry, and the alarm bells are going on, full
of
decibel
course.
volume.
Of course.
So take a step back, read about child development and compose your thoughts, and then talk to your child. And I think it's anything that, where we find our children are doing something which is worrying us, before we pass judgment, and react. We should really listen to where the child is coming from. Like, what was going on in your mind? What are you thinking about? And understand, because only then we'll be able to address it properly. You know, your child may say, oh, you know, Mama, my friend had a small boil on his penis and it was hurting him. So he was showing me to check. And so, oh, that's good that but you know what? He needs to tell his parents, because maybe he needs to see a doctor. So you don't know what's going on. Sometimes we presume it's some sexual kind of
course.
you know,
And,
connotation.
What happens is, Doctor, we hear so much about the things that happen in schools and colleges, and we as parents are really very nervous, stressed out. So when we see our children behaving like that, the first thing are the alarm bells go ringing, you know. Now, when is it that I, as a parent, have to really realize that there's something wrong? You said that it's okay for children to, you know, check out each other, touch themselves, but when is a time that I need to know that there is a problem? I need to, you know, get a doctor. There must be some medical intervention. So when would that be?
Medical
Intervention, like a doctor, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, counselor.
Child?
Yes.
So young children, see, if there is sexual abuse, I would say that would be probably result in a change in the behavior. So any change in behavior in a child should be a cause for finding out more. So, for example, if a child, you know, used to happily go over to the neighbor's house or to a relative's house and now just does not want to go, starts crying when a certain person appears, you know, is kind of not eating properly or waking up at night with nightmares. So any change in the child's behavior should lead the parent to wonder what's happening. That's why one needs to educate the child early on, because if you've told the child about the body parts, if you've told the child that no one can touch your private parts except your mom or your dad when they're helping you with, you know, bathing or putting on your clothes, or the doctor, but that, you know, one of us will be there with you. So if you've told your child this, that no one can touch your private parts, your child will come and tell you if someone has touched their private parts. But why children clamp up is because they have not been educated. They are afraid. They don't know if they're going to get into trouble. In fact, they think they're surely going to get into trouble. And very often molesters or abusers threaten children. So they get confused. They say, you know, this is our little secret and don't tell anybody, and you know, it's a way to give love. Or if you tell someone, you'll get into trouble, right? Or no one is going to believe you. So children get confused and they keep quiet. So this is like a message for parents that please educate your children about their body parts, about what is safe and unsafe, what is private, and if anybody, you know, indulges in any unsafe kind of behavior, you must come and tell. So if the child knows this, that means then the child doesn't get confused and, you know, not know what to do. So it's really preventive rather than wait for something to happen and then address it. And when I spoke about the changes in behaviors earlier on, this would be in a child who is able to speak and so on, but doesn't know how to tell or whom to tell or how to tell. Otherwise, children will come and tell in case they have, anyone has threatened their safety, if they're being taught.
Okay.
Yeah.
You spoke about that for different ages, there are different things that parents need to share with their children. So if it is between 2 and 4-year-old child, what should I tell them about their body parts and what's good, what's bad? What should I do?
Right. So names of the body parts and the scientific names, as I said. That's very important, and it's important to use it during daily activities, right? So, you talk about your ears, eyes, every
Right.
day, the same way during the days of the, the activities of the day where the private parts are exposed, you use the correct names for that. Then is the concept of private and public. And private and public is, parts of the body, which are the parts covered by the underwear, places, so private place is the bedroom or the bathroom with the door closed, and therefore anything to do with your private parts is a private behavior. So if you want to, use the toilet to pass urine or stool, that's a private behavior. If you want to have a bath, that's a private behavior because you're exposing your private parts. Dressing, undressing, these are all private behaviors. Therefore, you have to do them in a private place. Right, so children also at a certain age, they love kind of this exhibitionism. They'll come out of the toilet without their clothes, and the parents will be running behind them, trying to
Yes.
catch them, and
Of
they'll run
course.
even faster. Right, so it's part of fun. So when we teach them, you have to come out of the bathroom with a towel around you because that's, you can't show your private parts to everybody. Children learn about that. They may still tease the parent once in a way, but at least they know that, say they're going for swimming camp or they're going for, to another friend's house, that they know that they need to cover themselves. Private, public is another very important concept. And the third important concept is safety. How to keep yourself safe. We tell children that no one can touch your private parts or show you their private parts or ask you to show your private parts, because we don't use a good touch, bad touch, because sometimes sexual abuse can occur without touch. So therefore even showing is a form of abuse, right? So we say these things, and or anything that makes you feel uncomfortable must do three things. So what are those three things? One is to say no or stop. Okay, because and say it loud, because you have to make sure that you're heard and you say it with confidence. Two is leave that place. Okay, so suppose it's you've gone to a friend's place, get out of that room, or if it is happening in a classroom, move out of there. And third is go and tell someone. And we actually kind of talk to the child and identify who they can tell. So for example, if they are, and 2 to 4, they're going to not many places. School, if you're in school, who can you tell? If you're in your grandparents' place, who can you tell? If you're at home, who can you tell? Okay, so once children know that they can do these three things, say stop, leave, and go and tell someone, then we are imparting them this information which they can use. And we can do a little role play even with them and say, okay, now suppose of course you don't have to touch, but suppose someone touches your pants, your private parts, what are you going to do? So the child says, no, look at me and say, no. So we actually teach the child how to do it, so that we arm them with information. Just like, if there's a fire in the house, what are you going to do, right?
Right.
You will teach the child how to keep themselves safe. Or when you're crossing the road, how will you cross the road? So it's basic safety. And, parents should think of this in those terms. Any parents who would want their children to be in
a situation like this, no,
exactly,
of course not.
Right?
Of course not.
So, once you kind of give them this basic information, then we've kind of covered the important parts.
You spoke about children not allowing someone to touch the child. However, we have heard, on so many programs on TV, where children are made to watch pornographic movies and things like that, or maybe even books and magazines where they tell them to come watch with me. So I think that aspect also we need to look into.
Yeah, that is abuse, and that is kind of very often abusers, what they do, they kind of prepare children, because before they actually abuse them, they're kind of testing the
waters.
ground.
Yeah.
So this is a form of kind of preparing them for that. So it's direct abuse. So that's why we tell children that anything that makes you feel uncomfortable, or anything that an adult or someone else asks you to do and then asks you to keep it a secret, because many children love to keep secrets. It gives them a lot of importance, you know.
True.
But we must tell them that never keep secrets, and always come and tell your mom or your dad. Yeah, these are things which we need to prepare children for.
What about a little older children? Same principles?
Of course, whatever you've done in preschool, older children now, you know, they love to know about the bodies, how bodies work. Okay, so they kind of want the mechanical aspects. So, and if there's a good relationship with their parent, they'll start asking lots of questions. Also, they're exposed to so much more. So, for example, they may see an ad for, you know, condoms on TV or, you know, sanitary pads. So then they'll ask questions, right? So certainly, you know, before they hit puberty, they need to know about all the changes of puberty as they grow up, okay? The changes in the body structure, body size, you know, erections, periods, and all that, okay? Besides that, also about reproduction, because they very often they'll see animals mating. You know, they may see dogs mating in the street, and they will ask questions.
Yes.
So again, they need to be educated about that, and this is something parents find difficult. So it's always helpful to use. There are a lot of books, good resources with diagrams. Okay, so parents can kind of explain to the child. Now, sometimes parents worry if we tell them, they'll go and tell all their friends and so on. Okay, so what I advise parents to do is to tell the child, you know, this information which I've shared is private. Okay, and you know, all the other mummies and daddies want to tell their own children about it. Okay, so sometimes they get upset if you go and share this information with your friend, because just like your mom and dad have told you, their mummies and daddies also would like to tell them, and they would like their child to hear it from them rather than from anybody else. You know, so that is kind of the way we overcome that worry of parents that, you know, my children may just go and blab about this in school and then we'll get into
I know,
trouble.
because
So-
children tend to do that. My mother told me, my father told me. It is true, my father told me. So
Right, yeah.
it can get embarrassing, you know.
Yeah, but it's also, I mean, that's what, you know, if parents are worried about that, rather than say don't go and tell anyone, to do it this way, that is private information, and their mummies and daddies would also like to tell them. Yeah.
You have spoken about a very, very important point where you said today, with everything out there in the open, sometimes children know more than you do. You know,
Yes.
it is not just about computers. I remember for computers, I always have to ask my daughter, what do I do next? But when it comes to even this, you know, the sexual aspect, sometimes children know much more than parents do. So how do we sort of not neutralize, but how can we decrease that the effect of media and what they are teaching? It's not always right. We all know that the media doesn't always, they're not always teaching the right thing to our children. So how do we reduce the effect of this?
Right. So that's really a very important area for parents and teachers to consider. So media is a great tool for discussion. And I think it's very important that parents know what their kids are watching, okay, especially the younger ones, and to view content together with their children. Not adult content. Adult content is for adults, okay, but say it's a PG-13 film, okay, so you view it together with your adolescent, and you kind of view it critically. So for example, even say advertisements, you know, many advertisements are so sexist and like the woman's body is objectified, right? And you know, it's what we say, talk back to your TV. So you're not telling your child, oh, see what she's doing and they're using her. You say, oh my goodness, how stupid. Why are they using that woman's body to sell that motorcycle? They should be telling us, you know,
More about
how
the
much of
motorcycle.
petrol it uses, what mileage does it give, like how much it costs to use. You know, that's important information. You know, there's no connection between, so you're talking back to your TV and your child is listening. Yeah, so, you know, that's what we call critical TV watching. Similarly, there may be something in the newspapers, right? As I said, it could be about, you know, a rape, or it could be about, you know, a gay pride event. So that's an opportunity to talk to your child about these things. And you know, there's no topic that is taboo. If your child asks a question, it's very important that it is answered. First of all, it's wonderful that children are coming to you and asking questions. Two, maybe you don't know what to say. That's going to be quite common, right? Because you didn't expect it and suddenly your child asks you a question.
Could I just give an example of
Yes.
this? Because it happened in front of my eyes. My sister had come to visit from Bombay, and we were walking, and I think my nephew was about 3, and there were dogs mating there. He's standing there and he's watching them. What exactly they are doing? Mama, what is it that they are doing? What is that thing coming out? We didn't know
So
where
he's
to look.
thinking like a scientist.
Yes, we didn't know where to
Very
look.
good
And I'm
observation.
sure our viewers, many of us must have had an experience like that, where you are like, we didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
It just happened, just like that. So what does
Right.
a parent do in a situation like this?
So, I mean, in a situation like that, one would say, you know, they're making puppies. And suppose, say, what is making puppies? Yeah, you know what? It needs a proper explanation. Now this is, you know, we're busy, we have to go shopping before and go into the shop before it closes, so we'll talk about this later. But talk about it later, okay? And the thing is, so if parents don't know what to say, it's important that they tell the child, you know what, this is such an important question you're asking. I'm really happy you're asking me this question. I want to make sure that I give you the right answer. Okay, so I'll need to find the correct answer. And so, you know, I'll tell you tomorrow, or I'll tell you later this evening, okay, and go back and do it. Don't pray that the child will forget. You know, and as I said, there are many, many great resources that parents can go to in order to get information on how to address whatever that issue is.
That reminds me, isn't Setu coming up with a program like that? I have read somewhere that Setu is coming up with a program for
Yes.
children to become aware of sexuality.
So it's a program for parents and of course teachers, and in fact a workshop is happening on the 13th of November, in a couple of 13 days, today is November.
Right, first already.
Yes, on childhood sexuality. And why we have these workshops is because, as I said, it's important for parents to know. Two, it's not rocket science. You know, sometimes parents are so worried about this, and there's such lovely resources, simple ways in which we can educate children. And I think if your child knows that they can come to you for information, they can safely talk to you, ask you without being ridiculed, without being told, you know,
Not now,
how
go,
dare
go,
you ask
or
these
go.
questions, like what are you thinking about, this is wrong, right? You can have such a wonderful, trusting relationship with your child. You know, and it doesn't mean that we have to know everything. As I said, there may be something they ask us because they are reading, watching, questioning, right, noticing. They may ask us something which really we get gobsmacked and we don't know what to say. That's okay. We say, you know what, you're thinking like a scientist. I want to make sure that I give you the right answer. So, and go and find out. So, and they can always come to Setu and, you know, with their questions, and we can help them out. Yeah. So I hope parents register for this workshop, because we'll be discussing in detail, like, you know, how do you talk to your child, what opportunities do you use, and at each age, you know, what are the things to talk to them about. So, and it's wonderful because parents can do it. I have great faith that parents really are very, very good teachers in this area to their children.
Okay. So as doctor was saying, on November 13th, they're having a workshop, and I think we should all take this great opportunity, especially parents and teachers, on how to handle situations, the sticky situations that we have spoken so far. Doctor, my next question to you is, when does this, I would say awkward, because if I'm a parent and children are, you know, if my son or daughter is putting his or her hand in the pants, it's like, oh my goodness, what am I supposed to do? So when does this kind of behavior, when does it stop?
Right.
Adolescent or a little after that?
So masturbation continues right through life. Okay, there's no age at which it should stop. As I said, it's a process of self-discovery, self-pleasuring, which is absolutely normal. The only thing is it should be socialized. So of course you cannot do it in public at any age, right? Now it's okay to masturbate. It's okay not to masturbate also. So it's a completely personal decision, and yeah, it never loses its significance. So it's literally up to the person to decide if they want to stop or not at any age.
No, my question was like, as children, with children, when does this kind of behavior stop that they
Doing
exhibit
it
in public?
Well, when they're taught, and they may kind of forget and touch themselves, say in a school, on a school bus, or at a party, they're feeling bored and they don't realize. So you would distract them. You wouldn't say stop it or slap their hand and say, take it out of your pants. You just distract them and quietly tell them that's a private behavior, and that's it. And if at home, they were doing it at home, and it's a private behavior, so only in the bedroom or the bathroom with the door closed. So it's an opportunity to kind of repeat that message.
So if I were to say this to my child, that they're masturbating, and I say, don't do this, this is private behavior, and he or she,
don't do this. This
okay,
is private behavior.
Not here.
Okay, yeah. So it has to be done in a private place, in the bedroom or the bathroom with the door closed.
So if the child asks me, I am playing devil's advocate, but these are situations that we as parents, all of us, face at some point or the other. So I say, this is to be done in the bathroom, or this is to be done in the bedroom. And the child says, okay, can I go and do it? What should...
yeah, if he doesn't have to do his homework, or if he, yeah, by all means.
So is it okay for children to masturbate?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. It's a completely natural and normal behavior. Now I'm going to ask ask myself a question. So parents ask me but how much is normal, right?
That was my next question. How much is normal? Because
right.
I'm getting a little worried now.
So as I said, masturbation right through life. There are certain periods of life where children may masturbate more than otherwise. For example, adolescence.
Yes.
Because there's this surge of hormones.
Absolutely.
And this, growth in sexuality development. And actually, at that age, masturbation is, according to me, safe sex. Because it's, adolescents, because also the pressure that they have, the peer pressure to have sex, very often they're kind of compelled or pushed by the peer pressure, so for them to kind of have that sexual release, okay, masturbation is the safest way. So they may masturbate more than at other times. However, there's no formula like twice a day or 20 times a day. There's nothing like that, and there should be no anxiety around it. Because we also have this, it's called the Dhat syndrome, where,
What is that? Could you repeat, please?
Yeah, so the Dhat syndrome, where it is believed that every 1 drop of semen is equal to, I think, 1 million drops of blood or something like that. So people who masturbate and ejaculate think that they are becoming very weak, and it's bad for your health, and it creates a lot of anxiety. It's quite common in the South Asian region, and it's nonsense, because there's semen is like tears, just like we can cry
bodily fluids
and cry and there'll still be more tears. It's the same with semen. Okay, so it's there's absolutely nothing that you're losing power or losing strength or anything like that. So the thing is that so when parents ask me how much is too much, I said, okay, is your child masturbating day and night, not going to play, not eating their food, not going to school? Of course now it's lockdown, but are they neglecting their studies, not meeting their friends? Then it's possibly excessive, right? But if your child is doing all these other things, it's a completely personal behavior. So yes, very often adolescents will lock themselves in the bathroom and not come out. What to do? So I said, well, if you have just one bathroom in your house and there are 5 people using it,
I know.
then you need to get that adolescent out of the bathroom quickly, right? But
Very
however,
quickly.
if they have their own bathroom, don't poke your nose where you're, and unnecessarily worry yourself. Make sure that the child's functioning in the other areas is fine. talk to your child if you're anxious and say, now you're growing up. This is a normal time to be worried about your body and the body changes and whether you're developing on time. Girls will worry about the size of their breasts, they'll compare breast sizes, and basically teenagers want to look the same. They don't want to be different. So differences in body cause a lot of anxiety. So my classmate already has a mustache, but I don't. Or, my classmate is much taller than me, or, has developed breasts. So these are things which cause a lot of anxiety. So that's again an opportunity for the parent to talk to the child and find out and give them information to read. It's not easy to talk to a teenager about sexuality. Right, and they will run away and say, "Please, I don't."
I know, like, gross.
Gross, yuck.
That is a term that I hear so often. Gross. What are you talking about? Will you just stop?
So what I tell parents, a good place to talk is in the car when you're driving. So one is they can't run away. It's okay, they're enforced kind of in that space. Plus
they'll put their earphones, please, let me tell you that.
Okay.
They come up with the most creative ideas to not listen to their parents. So,
well, actually most teenagers are quite interested in listening, provided it is not a sermon or a very moralistic kind of approach. And they appreciate that they're being spoken to. And it creates a situation where they know they can talk to you if they have any questions. Sometimes they may come and ask you about a friend of theirs. Actually, they ask
yes,
about themselves.
Of course,
my friend was, and that's absolutely fine. But yeah, so to go back to the car scenario, so of course, parents should know what to say. And again, it's not like a 1-hour lecture, but maybe the few things that they're kind of worried about. For example, safe behaviors, right? And not only having sex, but even things like drinking and driving and all kinds of other safety issues. The other thing about the advantage about talking in the car is you don't have to make eye contact, right? You're both looking in front, and you can kind of speak. And if your child says, "Please, like I'm so embarrassed, stop," you will say, "Yeah, it's hard, because it's awkward for you and it's embarrassing. But please understand that this is something very normal and natural." And I want to make sure that you have a really healthy adolescence. And since your body is changing so rapidly and sometimes it's worrying, you may not know about what's happening to you, please make sure that, I want to tell you that I'm always here should you have any questions, and I'm going to give you this book that you can read. And yeah, anything you need to clarify or want to know more about, please come.
Right.
So them resources to read. Also, media is fantastic because again, it can be used as
it's a double-edged sword.
Tool for communication. So, for example, songs. There's some songs which have really sexual undertones in them, and again, it's a good way to talk about sexuality. Or it could be a movie or a series, TV series. So these are all kind of ways in which we can, or opportunities to talk to our children about sexuality. So we don't have to sit them down and give them a 1-hour lecture, but use that advertisement or that serial or the news report in order to talk to them. And I think that it's something because teenagers like to disagree. They may say, "What rubbish, you're so old-fashioned," and that's an old way of thinking. And you can say, "Yeah, you may think differently, but in our family, this is the value." So it's important to give the values, and we're not like shoving the values down the throat, but we are explicitly stating them, and hopefully we are practicing them ourselves. And even if our kids verbally disagree with us, somewhere they are absorbing
something,
our words and our behavior.
A part of it, not completely.
And it is their time to argue and to dismiss what we are saying. That's okay. And we can say, yeah, you think differently. This is our family value, and yeah, very often there can be differences of opinion. So let's agree to disagree. Okay, but this is what we think for this particular reason. So always, you should be able to give a reason why you have that value. So yeah, I think that just because you're going to disagree doesn't mean we should not say it, but it should be in a very easy breezy conversational tone without any like coming
I'm your
down
mother,
with
I'm
the-
your father, you better listen to me.
Yes, that is the worst thing for anything to talk to a teenager. The more forcefully you try to come down, then it's like, okay, you want to see who's boss? I'll show you. Like, so then
Yes.
it becomes a clash of egos, and that's not respectful and effective communication.
No, but you know, children tune out. I have noticed it. In fact, very close to home it happened, and while the adult was speaking to the child, throughout those 10 minutes, I'm telling you, I've seen it myself, the child had his eyes to the ceiling. And I'm like, hello? It was truly like that. It was, oh my goodness, children, yeah, painful, extremely painful to see that. Like, he's standing there, so he's just standing with his eyes to the ceiling. But doctor, it was so nice to have such a candid conversation. Normally we do not hear things like, I'm sure our viewers agree with me, we normally don't have people who say masturbation is fine, it's normal, it's natural, let your children do it. I think this is the first time, especially on Go on
Within
TV.
limits of socialization.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So we have learned a lot. But again, a reminder that on November 13th, Setu is organizing a workshop for teachers as well as for parents. And those of you all who are interested, you can log on to the website and
Yes,
there would be
and register
and
for
register.
it. It's, the link is there on Facebook, on Instagram, as well as our website.
right, because it
And
I
this
think
is an online program.
yes, it's online.
webinar, yeah.
So you can sit at home and you can learn how to deal with your children better. Of course, parenting does come from within and we learn from our mistakes. But if we are getting an opportunity to learn firsthand how to avoid those mistakes, I think we all need to take that opportunity. I take this opportunity now to say thank you on behalf of you and of Navin Times and all at Goa 365. Thank you so much, Doctor. We've eyes are now open, our mind is open, and I think we are in a better position to handle this aspect of our children's growth. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria, and thanks once again to all the viewers. And I hope I've been able to convince you that talking to your child about their bodies, about their sexuality, is something that's very important for parents and teachers to do. So,
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you. And till next time, take care of yourselves. Bye.